Welcome to the Nursing Alumni Panel Mentoring event, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Caitlin Nolan, and I am the Alumni Coordinator for the CU College of Nursing. A huge thank you to our alumni who have volunteered their time to participate in this panel and to answer your questions. Unfortunately, one of our panelists, Colleen Casper, was unable to join us today. She is currently, as we speak, meeting with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment on healthcare workforce retention and resilience. So she's got some big fish to fry today. She's really sorry she couldn't make it. Tammy Spencer, who you all know and love, is our MC for the day. So in addition to her faculty and clinical roles on our campus, Tammy is actually a CU nursing alumna. And right now she is serving out her final term as the co-president of the CU Nursing Alumni Association Board of Directors. And the board of directors are the sponsors for this event. So Tammy, I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away.
Thank you, Caitlin, and welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're here. I think this is going to be a great session for everybody. So the way the session is going to run is we're going to have a brief panel presentation, and then we are going to go to breakout rooms, and each of our guests here will be leading a breakout room. The guests then will rotate through the breakout room, so everybody will get a chance to meet with and ask your questions with each of these great panelists that we have today. So we encourage you to keep your videos on, but certainly fine if you want to keep them off as well. So we're going to get started with some introductions, and Kathy, I'm going to have you lead us off here. If you could tell us your class year and your program, your current title and role, and how long you've been there.
Great, thanks for inviting me. My name's Kathy Casey. I graduated in 1989 with my master's in nursing administration from CU. I'm currently the nurse residency program coordinator at Denver Health, and I've been there for 4 years. And just one more bit of information, Tammy and I work together as clinical instructors, clinical faculty at CU in the 1990s. So I have known Tammy for a very long time, and I'm pleased to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Chantal.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chantal Denga. I graduated actually in 2019, so I'm a recent graduate. I worked as a nurse family partner at Centura before transitioning over to private duty nursing as a home health while I'm in my graduate program for nurse midwifery here at CU. So I graduate again in December of this year with my midwifery degree. So yay!
Thank you, Chantal. Mandy.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see all of you via video. I have a couple of degrees from CU. My first degree is a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from CU Boulder, and that was in 2001. And then I transitioned and received my BSN in 2003 at the CU Health Sciences Center. My current role is the Nurse Residency Program Manager for UC Health. And I began at UC Health back when I was actually a nursing student at school at CU in what we call as a nurse intern role. And that was all the way back in 2001. So I've been about 20 years at UC Health, which is hard to believe. And if we're going to tell stories about Tammy, which I do think is appropriate, because Kathy let us off there, Tammy was one of my, I think, MedSurg 1 professors that actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me to be accepted into a nurse residency program in the ICU when I was a new grad. So it's 6 degrees of separation these days. So I hope you enjoy our panel today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mandy. All right, so we're going to get started with the questions for the panel. So Kathy, you're going to start us off. Your question is, with so many options, how do I get started with the job search? How can I be a competitive applicant? Kathy.
Right, so the best place to start is online. So start searching programs or hospitals or clinical settings that you're interested in. Look on the websites to see what they have as far as residency programs or what they offer for new grad options, clinical internships, externships, different types of like a CNA role or a unit secretary, behavioral health techs, EMTs, those kinds of positions. So you'll want to look at what is available. And if you're looking in Colorado, my recommendation is look throughout the state of Colorado. It's very competitive. A lot of people want to move to Colorado. And how you can stand out as a competitive applicant. Make sure you have the preferred qualifications. So as you look at those various jobs, see what is required as an applicant and then what is preferred. So make sure that those preferred qualifications are definitely listed on your resumes. Look at volunteering organizations that you can join to learn about the different organizations that you're interested in, and network. So being on this in this panel discussion, what your school offers, what is out there in the community to help you with job fairs, to find out what the different organizations are offering. That will help you be a really competitive applicant. And of course, coming from CU, you stand out already. So that is, definitely something to profile on your resume and to talk about your experiences at CU for sure.
Thank you, Kathy. Chantal, you're up next. How should I prepare and what can I expect for my interview?
Yes, interviewing is a art and skill in and of its own. I would say the best way to start is to do your research. Know the company, facility, whoever you're going to be joining. It's really good to figure out what their motto, what their culture, what they stand for, because when you do your interview, you really want to tailor your interview to really highlighting and hitting those shared goals. So that's what's really important, is figuring out what the institution or facility that you're applying to really resonates with and respects. And then also sometimes if it's a teaching hospital especially, figure out which nursing theorists they really resonate with, because it's always good to kind of add in that nursing theory throughout it, because it helps us see this broader critical thinker in the applicant. So making sure that you have that as well is really important. And then you should start this now if you haven't already, but collecting stories. I have a little document on my computer where I have just written a couple of stories of things, whether it's as a nurse or in my life, that I've done things well, challenges I've had with patients or in other relationships or with colleagues or whatever, to be able to have things to speak to. Because in a lot of these interviews, I've been asked, tell me about a time you had a challenging encounter with a fill in the blank, whether it's a patient, a colleague, or whatever. And if you have stories about this, then you're going to be able to really speak towards this. And I think it's really important that if you have this, you can review this list before you actually go into your interview, so that you don't have a deer in headlights moment when they ask you these stories and these questions. And then something also to have are stories that highlight your strengths and your weaknesses. And when you have stories about your weaknesses, how those weaknesses then became strengths. And I'll give an example in a minute. But also make sure that if you tell a story, that you tell the whole story, and that the conclusion and the end and the outcomes of the story is told too, not just the moment that is exemplifying what they're asking in a question, if that makes sense to you. So something I think about is if somebody asks me an area of weakness, I might have said, if I'm, a budgeting new nurse, I've just graduated, I'd be like, during my capstone, I was doing really well with managing 2 or 3 patients, but this is a busy floor and I ended up getting up to 5 patients. And it was really difficult for me because I felt like I wasn't able to really give the time that I needed to each of my patients. And I felt like I was always running behind. I was feeling a little overwhelmed. And so I sat down with my preceptor. So that was a weakness that I had. And so I sat down with my preceptor and we worked through it. And we really came up with a plan to really help structure my nursing brain and to help me so that I could, accommodate these extra patients and still feel like I was being safe, organizing my time, and being able to do the things I needed to do as a nurse. And then you talk about your journey doing that. And then at the end, you can talk about how now that's actually a strength of yours, is the organization and those types of things, so that you can see how you took a weakness, you showed how you took criticism, you're able to adapt and then learn and grow and identify areas of weaknesses and grow in that. And I think that's one of the best things to ever look for in a candidate. So if you can show that humility and that growth in your interview, I think that's going to be really awesome for you. And then it also, you can talk and speak toward the fact that you're a lifelong learner in that process, and that also you know your safe boundaries, because I think there's nothing worse than somebody coming in thinking they know everything, because people are dangerous. Knowing where your boundaries and your limitations are actually really healthy and will make you stand out as a candidate as well, in my opinion. So those are things that I would do in your interview. Show up early, dress professionally. You don't want to be late to these things. Have a resume in hand and references. Typically they'll have a digital copy, but if somebody wants to actually have it, you want to be able to supply it. Always come with questions. If they ask you, do you have any questions? You say, nope. It kind of sometimes communicates disinterest. So just have a couple in your pocket just to like put out, even if you're still like a little bit deer in headlights at this point. And it doesn't hurt to create an e-portfolio. I went to a nursing conference about 2 years ago now, and that was something that was really being buzzed about, is the beauty of e-portfolios. So they're definitely not necessary, but I think they're lovely, and you can always point people towards your e-portfolio, which highlights different aspects of yourself. And also, it's okay to take a moment before answering a question. So take a moment to think about it. It's okay. You don't have to just like fire off answers. Taking a moment to ponder a question that's being asked shows insight and intuition that you have, that you're really wanting to speak towards the question, and you're taking a moment to digest what was asked of you. And I think that that's wholly inappropriate. It's wholly appropriate, sorry. And I think, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Chantal. Okay, Mandy, what is your advice for getting a new grad position in a specialty unit?
Yes, this is a frequent question that we receive. And before I even get started, the advice that you just received from Kathy and Chantal is like spot on. So I hope you're taking notes and listening. It looks like this is recorded, so that'll be something for you to really listen to. But I think one of the many questions that we field from a lot of new graduate nurses is, how do I really target and get into that specialty unit that I might be interested in? And I think some of the pieces of information or just advice that I'd like to share with you is that networking is very helpful. So if those of you who are in your clinical rotation, or those of you who have even a paid experience in some of those areas, it's about making yourself known and doing a good job, and having conversations and getting to know folks that are working in those areas. And if you're in a situation where you haven't had a lot of clinical exposure, I would encourage you to reach out. And in terms of folks that you either learn or know from through the Alumni Association, you can look on the website and do your homework. We often will post our unit descriptors so that you can also learn what is one specialty unit comparison to another specialty unit, because those also vary across organizations in different clinical settings. And so I think doing your homework, I think networking, having conversations when you're in those clinical settings and saying, hey, tell me a little bit more about your day-to-day. What does this look like? What is your patient population? Because ultimately what we want to do is we want you to find what your passion is, and we want that to be where we link some of your experience so that you can continue to stay in that area for as long as you so choose. So I think it is important for you to dabble a little bit. I think sometimes you think what might be the area that you're interested in, and then when you start to see what that really looks like in a day-to-day and shift-to-shift basis, you realize, gosh, that might not actually be for me, or I didn't realize that it encompassed X, Y, and Z. And so I think that it might be good for you to just have conversations in your rotations and ask a lot of questions. I think that's always well received. I think getting to know just the staff and what their roles are, and then asking friends and alumni and even just people that you have in the community, tell me a little bit about what you do so I can have a better understanding. But I also, we'll talk about this a little bit later in our actual breakout, but I think something that also goes hand in hand to this question is also identifying what is it that you really want to do, and what could possibly be the career trajectory? Because I think sometimes we put a lot of weight in it's gotta be this unit at this hospital. And as Kathy alluded to, it is a very competitive market, and there are different opportunities that are often present themselves at different times. And I think that being open-minded and a little bit of flexible will serve you well. And there's a lot of great opportunities for you. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit more if potentially you might not have an opportunity to get exactly what you're hoping for in the first job opportunity. But I also think there's great benefit in that as well. So I'll save some of those talking points for a little bit later as maybe a teaser for our station. But by and large, I think networking, exposure, communication, homework are all the big pieces that I want you to consider right now as you're really trying to identify what's an area of interest for you to start your career in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mandy. All right, so we're going to transition into our breakout rooms now. And each of our guests will be a host of a breakout room, and they will rotate every 10 minutes. So our guests will kind of lead the discussion, but certainly this is about you. This is about getting your questions answered, dispelling any myths, anything that you feel like would be really helpful in your preparation for the job search. And again, we certainly want you to ask all those questions. This is a great opportunity to have access to some really great information. So let's take it away with the breakout rooms. Gosh, awesome questions, awesome students, of course. So we're running a little ahead of time. Are there any last minute questions that we can help you answer? You can unmute yourself, you can put them in the chat, whatever feels comfortable. Any questions that we didn't get to or didn't get to answer?
I had a question. I wanted to ask about an MSN and kind of the differences between having a BSN versus an MSN, and how common are MSNs seen, and how much opportunity differences there are for jobs between the two.
Chantal, do you want to take that one since you're in the middle of your program?
Yeah. So it just depends. So once you become a master, so once you get your MSN, so there's different things. You can be a clinical nurse specialist all the way up to different NPs. So it just depends on what kind of master's degree you're getting in nursing. There is community health as well. So it just depends on what you're getting as far as what the job market looks like, what opportunities there are. Do you have a more specific, narrowed down degree that you're referring to, or
I don't. I didn't even realize that you could specialize the MSN. So I just was curious about that, just that extra level of a master's degree, if that's really sought out, or if you still have quite a few opportunities as a BSN.
Oh, absolutely. BSN, you're going to have amazing opportunities. BSN is going to open a lot of doors for you. For the masters, I would say for those that are really wanting to specialize, that's where that enters in, or for those that know that they want to be NPs. So what I can speak more towards is the NP side, because there are more specialists within nursing in the MSN that's not necessarily delegated as a nurse practitioner. And I'm more familiar with the nurse practitioner side. And the resources at CU are really good at showing what program options there are for all of the MSN. But I know a lot of MSNs that have then gone on to do their doctorate of nursing or their PhD. So that's a whole nother beast to talk about. I know people who become nurse practitioners, so they got their MSN and then they go on to get their PhD because they want to do more research rather than the DNP, which takes research and applies it clinically, if that makes sense. So those are those two designations. And so yeah, you can do all hosts of things. BSN is a great place. You still have a lot of opportunity. You can try a whole ton of nursing. There's so much nursing to do out there. From bedside, you could become a nurse writer where you actually write curriculum, or you can do a lot with there's a lot of people that are starting their own nurse companies, and it's just really cool. So there's a lot to do in nursing. Being an author as a nurse, another thing of nurse writer, but instead for a company, you're just authoring your own books. And it's really cool. There's so much to do.
Yeah, great question, Katie.
Thank you for answering that.
You bet. And there was a question in the chat that I just answered from Rochelle. Rochelle, did you have any other questions about that? CNA, ACP?
No, I think that was helpful. I guess, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, it's like, I'm still in my first year of the BSN program and trying to figure out like, what are the best things that I can do for myself now besides like getting a CNA or ACP job to help me, like, yeah, stand out, I guess, when I start applying for jobs. So
Yeah, absolutely. And any of our guests want to add to that? Mandy, Chantal?
I was gonna say with your medical Spanish course, you know, the Dawn Clinic is a wonderful, wonderful volunteer opportunity. It's student run. So you could do triage nursing in there, but you can also run work groups, which is another way to stand out and then have some leadership on there. And then CU Peru is another thing that's really awesome. And you can do curriculum writing for them, which is another cool thing. And they go out to Peru, to some of the remote villages, and they teach individuals in those villages, like how to assess their people and be able to know what's emergent, how to take care of the people, or when they need to actually transport to the post. So that's another great thing to do, and that stands out.
Awesome. Any other questions before we sign off?
Tammy, I saw a question in the submitted questions from the registration form. I saw a couple of people ask questions about childcare as a new nurse and how to balance, you know, those responsibilities.
How to manage being a caregiver and going to school. Yeah. Chantal, you're living that dream right now.
I sure am. So I'm a single mom of 3. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy a little bit because I still work full time and I'm in clinicals in school. Right. Honestly, building up a really beautiful support system around you has been helpful. I know that's not a luxury that everybody has. I feel really fortunate because I do. And my kids are getting a little bit older, so I'm able to just kind of like, you know, be like, oh, they get out of school and the bus can bring them home. They can, you know, my oldest is now 13. She can hang out for an hour and watch the other ones while I come back, you know. So it's kind of a lot of juggling, a lot of figuring out who your support network is, talking to friends and neighbors and really getting social, you know, because I had to have really good friends and neighbors, you know, take my kids after school sometimes when I wouldn't get off until 5. It's really getting out of your shell and just realizing that it takes a community. It really does.
Thank you, Chantal. And more information on the CU Peru volunteer work. Where would you send somebody for that?
Let me see if I can find it, and then I can send that out, or we can send it in an email. I can give that to Caitlin. If that's,
yeah, and great, Mandy. Choose a clinical setting that supports the time of life you're in. That's awesome. Absolutely.
I have a question if we have time for one more.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I'm part of the UCAN group, and there's not a lot of spare time to become an AZP or work as a CNA. And I was just wondering how, what your best advice is for like very part-time volunteer or opportunities for us to just gain some more clinical experience and be able to, you know, be in that kind of setting while we're in school, but not being able to commit to something weekly or something like that.
Right. Any of our panelists want to take that one?
I would say, yeah, vaccine clinics, look at volunteer opportunities. There's quite a few in the different organizations or even in the community. Look at, do you have opportunities in physician offices to volunteer, or in your church if they have a health ministries team? Anywhere that you can look for volunteers in healthcare is really helpful in your spare time. And we know, yeah, the accelerated program is very busy.
Yeah. The nice thing too about volunteering, Margot, I think, is you're not committed to, you know, a 12-hour shift a week. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to do or how many hours you want to do. And it really is a great resume builder, I would say. Mm-hmm. Mandy, do you have anything to add to that, or Chantal?
I did also just post a link to CU Peru.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know what COVID has done to it. So I'm, you know, I've been out of it for a little bit since I graduated, but
yeah, that's why I think the vaccination clinics right now are really helpful, because it is short term. You can kind of get a taste. I think, and we need the help. So I think that one might be good all around for good experience.
Yeah, and availing yourself to some, CU College of Nursing, student council or CUSNA. You don't have to be, take on a big leadership role, but just to be involved in something with those organizations also is great. Professional organizations, Mandy mentioned as well.
Even like getting involved politically with like, Colorado Nursing Association is great. They have great student rates too. And they have a lot of great committees that talk about legislation that's really affecting not only the people of Colorado, but even like the practice of nursing. And so I recommend going. They did with COVID, it changed, but the legislative dinners every year are great. It's a great way to dip your toe in, to get to know who's doing what, who's saying what, what's going on. I don't know. I love it. I think it's really great. And if you guys ever go on to your MP, policy is a big course that we take there, because you have to realize like how important policy really is into everything that we do. And to be a part of it and to lend your voice really doesn't take too much, but it has huge impacts.
Right. And also think about your professional organizations, the oncology nursing, they usually have monthly meetings, or the critical care nurses. So those are opportunities just to network and learn.
And it covers your butt in case anything ever happens. God forbid, something happens and it goes to court. If you're part of your associations and you've done really good charting, it really helps. I am not speaking from experience yet, knock on wood. I hope I never do. Knowing that I'm in midwifery, it's a highly litigious place. Might happen, but just knowing that's a really huge thing. So it's more than just like networking there. It's really covering your butt.
Awesome. Thank you all. I think our time here is ending. So I want to give a big round of applause to our fabulous, wonderful panelists. This has been so amazing. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share this information with our students. We really do appreciate it very, very much. And everybody have a safe weekend. Be careful out there. Take good care of yourselves. And thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.